I'm Amy Reynolds, and I am Senior Training Specialist here at CARET Legal. And today I'm looking forward to showing you how we make space for what matters for legal professionals with our platform, as well as how we are end to end for all of your needs. So, to begin, you'll see once you log in, we have a nice, neat interface focusing on email, calendar, and tasks. Great for getting your day started, being super productive, and showcasing what's most important to you. Now, with that, this is a customizable dashboard, so each user, depending on their permission level, can add, remove, or substitute information to make sure that the dashboard is exactly what they need it to be.
Okay.
On the left, we have our navigation pane that represents different record types or locations within the program. So, for example, down at the bottom here, we have our accounting icon.
Mm-hmm.
Up on the top right, we have our magnifying glass, and this allows you to do a global search of the database, meaning it will cover every corner. Great for things like a conflict search, where you may not be sure where they live in the database, but you need to know if they exist at all. You can
Okay.
place a name, be it a person or a company, and look at all the different record types to identify whether they already exist in some capacity.
Okay. And that'll search the records in the database. Doesn't necessarily search the documents in the database. Like they're not OCR'd, and then we wind up going into all that.
Depending on the document, if the document has been indexed, meaning also OCR'd, it will look for those terms within the document, but it's primarily looking at things like the titles of the documents to see if there are connections, but where possible, it will reach out into the contents of the document.
Okay. Okay. That's a pretty deep search.
Yes, very comprehensive. So here, I'll use the term Hamilton as an example. And just clicking the return or enter key, depending on your device, this is going to give you a full results page, organizing your results by a dark gray header, outlining that record type. So we have matters, we have events, and as I scroll down a little bit further, you'll see correspondences and a lot of different records. So
Oh
Hamilton is
yeah.
popular in our database. Within all of these record types, let me just scroll back up to the top for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see each of the record types has at least one hyperlink so that you could access that record for greater detail. So if you think you may be onto something and want to explore it further, you certainly can.
Okay.
Next to our magnifying glass, we have what we call our quick add button. And this is a really great, easy shortcut. It organizes what you can add and how you can add it. And this is a great way for you to do things on the go. It overlays your existing location, so you don't have to leave this search page or wherever your current location is in order to make an additional contribution to the database.
Okay.
So great.
And location. Sorry.
Yep.
Location of like where the user is inside the platform, not like
Correct.
I'm in Memphis.
Right.
It
Not
doesn't
geographic
care.
location.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Cool.
But that said, we are very mobile friendly.
Mm-hmm.
You can work from anywhere with an internet connection. So, and it's still all very safe and secure. So, geography aside, yes, I mean by location within the database. But for example, here, if I needed to, while I'm in the middle of this search, register a new email outbound or record a phone call having come in, it's going to overlay my location within the program. I can create that record, and when I'm done, it'll bring me right back to the search page where I was starting from.
Okay. So yeah, so you created something new, but you didn't have to, like, if you just had a phone call while you're
Yes.
researching something in a particular case or a particular matter, you could go log that phone call in a totally separate matter. And when you're done logging that phone call, you're back to where you started.
Yes. And in our ethos of creating space for what matters, this is really important because there's a lot of little things across different platforms where it's little seconds here and there where you have to navigate away to another window or you have to have something open on a separate monitor that then starts to add up in time throughout your day. And it's little things like this that add up in the bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
With our platform, we also have the CARET Legal Help Center. This is just a generic support site where you'll have things like treat it like a Google. You can ask a question. You could find YouTube videos. We have tons of content on our YouTube channel, written knowledge base articles, and you'll have shortcuts here for going through proper training. But also, we have biweekly webinars, so come back and check us out for more. Part of making sure that we're giving you the space for what matters most to you, we have about a dozen different ways for you to track your billable time. One of which is using the blue and gray collapse and expand bar we have here on the top right. This is going to open up our collapsible timer pane, and it allows you to run up to 10 timers at any time only one will actively run and only one per matter. Now, this timer pane does sync out to the same servers that our mobile app does, so you can stop and start your timers from either device. So, really great when you're on the go or you're multitasking.
Mm-hmm. And that just collapses right into the side panel. I can
Right.
have, if I'm working on 5 matters at the at the same time and I'm bouncing back and forth, then I can have all of those over there keeping track.
Yes. Yep. And starting a timer is as easy as picking the matter. So here I'm going to say I want to add a new timer. I'll use the drop down to start typing in a matter name or matter number.
Mm-hmm.
So here I will use Hamilton once again. And I'll click the play button on the right. I now have this timer started. It will continue to run. If I collapse my window, the timer will continue on in the background while I
Mm-hmm.
work. And when I'm done, I'll just pop it back open, pause the timer, or conclude the timer. And if I was to start a third timer here, and I'll use something completely different. When I start that third timer, the second one, the one that I just started, will have stopped automatically, so I don't have to worry about double billing or
Mm-hmm.
inadvertently missing the switch over of a timer.
Okay.
As I'm keeping my timers, I could use the play or pause function to switch back and forth. If I wish not to keep the time, I could always cancel out and discard. But more often than not, you're going to want to save your time in, so you use the green check mark on the left to finalize that time entry. And it does ask you for confirmation just to be sure that this wasn't clicked through by mistake. And you'll be brought to the new time entry window where you'll be able to confirm or add any details to finalize your time entry. If you're entering time manually, the window you see before you is the same prompt, so there's not really a difference in experience. You'll pick your matter, it will recognize you as the timekeeper and your rate.
Mm-hmm.
It will default to today's date but can be adjusted. And in using our timer, it does automatically track, in our case, the exact seconds, and it will round accordingly. It will do the same with longer durations. Now, in making sure that you can create the time as what you are comfortable with, you can always use terms like HMS for hours, minutes, seconds. You could use semicolons, or you could use colons, or you could use a uh, decimal. So any format that works for you. So hours, minutes, seconds, colons, or decimals. Uh,
Okay, that's handy.
but,
That's really handy that it will essentially kind of sanitize that data for me as opposed to me having
right.
to. And if my, if I have people in my office that just think about that slightly differently, it's still going to
Right.
bring that data into the same format.
Exactly. So here, if I put in 2H, 5M, and 3DS, it recognizes it as
Mm-hmm.
2 hours, 5 minutes, and 30 seconds. And then you'll be able to say, yes, do charge for it. Don't charge for it, but do show it on the bill.
Mm-hmm.
Or don't charge for it and also don't show it on the bill. We just want to kind of track this behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in that same example, if I was to do 1 and a colon and 30 minutes, it will recognize it. Or if I did 1.5, same translation. So really great because sometimes people have their preferences and we
Mm-hmm.
want to make sure that we're being flexible to your needs.
Okay.
You'll go ahead and pick things like your work types. These are generally keywords or phrases you're using to explain your time. And we do allow for you to preset those narratives. So if you, in an example of attending a court hearing,
Mm-hmm.
always describe a certain type of work a certain way, you could preload those texts, whether it's a starting text or a full billing narrative. Same for flat fee services.
And again, that kind of sanitizes our data where if I have a prompt there that says court appearance for hearing regarding, then whether it's me, my associate, my assistant, that's how it's going to start, and it's going to be a lot closer to each other, and we're going to seem a
Right.
lot more professional, I think.
Yeah, a lot more consistency,
Mm-hmm.
and to your point, a lot more professional because you are in the same office speaking different languages or trying to say the same thing two different ways.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So here I'll go ahead and update the pretext with the final text. So here we'll say court appearance for a hearing regarding traffic ticket on May 1st, and we'll lock that in. Now, with various windows within the system, you'll see that it offers you both save and close and save and new. Again, with that ethos of wanting to make sure that we save you time for what matters. So you can go right into the next time entry if you're back to back,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to concluding and then starting something else.
Okay. Yeah, because that's kind of how do you keep time? Do you keep time
Right.
like right as it happens, or do you enter your time at the end of the day? If you enter it at the end of the day, save and new, save and new.
Right. And as long as you are a timekeeper within the database, a lot of firms still rely on their support staff to enter time for them.
Mm-hmm.
So you still have that flexibility while it will recognize you by default. So I'm just going to go into a new time entry to show that. You can, once you pick the matter, go in and adjust that time to the next person if you're doing it on their behalf.
Okay.
In addition to the timers at the top of the timer pane, you also have a quick list at the bottom where it's going to display your 5 most recent matters or leads that you personally have come into contact with so you could revert back to them quickly. Great for after lunch or coming back on a Monday morning.
Uh-huh.
In using the system, there is a lot we are doing in terms of uh, making sure that we are staying an end-to-end solution, making sure that we are focusing on giving you the best practice management solution, as well as offering automation and services. So with that, we have our dashboard here, which does include widgets for email and calendar. These are both based on a bidirectional sync if you're using Office 365 or Google Workspace. We do offer other syncs as well, but these are the two most common.
Mm-hmm.
And with this, it gives you a really seamless experience. So you don't have to keep switching out to Outlook or go back and forth. It's bringing that Outlook experience in. So you're looking at the same email inbox, the same folders, a lot of the same items, but you're looking at it through the lens of CARET Legal.
If I'm in there and I'm replying to an email
Mhm.
within Carrot Legal, that's going to have a two-way sync and show up in my Google Workspaces, for example.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So for your email in particular, if I was to go ahead and reply, it is going to still bring over all the same contents. The
Mm-hmm.
biggest difference is that in the CARET Legal interface, you'll be asked for that matter or lead relationship, and it will give you the opportunity for billing. Where if you're
Mm-hmm.
just using Outlook, it's a separate experience, different application, so you miss out on a little bit of that functionality.
Well, and this is one of the things, Carrot, as an all in one, it brings all of those things together. Like that's kind of the
Right.
point of using something like Carrot is that you don't want to switch from Carrot Legal
Exactly.
to Outlook to some sort of random billing software to some sort of e-signature software. You want to have it all
Right.
right there.
Right. And to even further that, I mentioned the billing. In terms of our attachment, because we do host our own document management solution, you'll have the opportunity to bring in something from an outside file system like your desktop or a downloads folder, a network drive. Or
Mm-hmm.
you'll go within the system and look at the documents already stored on those relative matters. So in this case, there were no documents on the matter. But if I was to switch to a different matter because I needed to find a like item, it will bring out those list of documents, including folders and subfolders. So I'll have the opportunity to still find and showcase what I need.
Okay.
With the calendar, it is also bi-directional. And from here, we will have a work week preview in the widget. You can default to, or shouldn't say default, excuse me. You can pan over to other views. So you'll have the opportunity to go to a daily view and focus on just the day or list agenda view. So same information, but a different format. But
Mm-hmm.
it will default to a work week format to give you kind of the most bang for your space.
And so this information is coming from, let's say, the Google Workspace, or
Mhm.
these are also tasks or things that I would have set inside of Carrot Legal.
The tasks are a separate record type, so this
Okay.
is just focusing on your calendar events.
Okay. Cool.
Yep. With that, you have an all day section at the top for anything that is an all day event or runs multiple days. You also have your relative business hours time slot starting at 8 a.m. I could click into any part of the calendar, double click to create a new calendar event,
Mm-hmm.
or use that same double click to open an existing event and populate information or update information. In using your calendar events, the only requirement is your subject line to hold that space. But here, it's a little bit more than that. So here you'd put in your subject line. What is the purpose of holding this on the calendar? It's meeting with a new client. You have a little PI person here on the right. So if this was something of a personal nature, a doctor's appointment, a personal event, a PTO type event, you could say whether or not you're available without disclosing any other details.
Okay. Again, that encompassing
Right.
Everything that you need to do in the office, you can keep track of regular
Just here.
non-matter related events just in Carrot Legal.
Right.
Okay.
Your location field is powered by Google Maps, but it does sync out to our mobile application. So if you are on your phone and you prefer to use Apple Maps or Waze or other applications, it will look to your phone for that instruction.
Mm-hmm.
But it is using that for purposes of searching. So here, if I was to start typing an address like 1 Times Square, I don't necessarily know the exact zip code for downtown Manhattan. Maybe there's a more specific, it's a floor, it's a more specific type of physical location. When
Mm-hmm.
I do search this in, it will fill in the remaining details.
Okay.
Your category dropdown is a customizable dropdown that is set in your firm settings, your administrative settings. You could color code the events as well, so especially for those more important dates, your trial dates, your statute of limitation deadlines, where you might want to call them out with a bright red pop
Mm-hmm.
or other color scheme, you'll have the ability to manage that list behind the scenes, making sure that everything that is most important gets called out while not losing anything in the interim. Your from and to contains both date and time components. And if I'm going to make this an all day event, it's going to come off the time section will come off the prompt, as this is going to run on the calendar from midnight to midnight, being a
Mm-hmm.
true all day event. Similar, if it was a multi day event, it will run on the calendar from midnight to midnight each of the days that you've selected.
Okay.
We have a date calculate function, really great keeping you in the calendar, making sure that you are staying on task. And this is going to allow you to calculate a date forward or backward based on math that you prescribe. So here, starting with the 23rd of May, if I need to adjust 90 days forward, I'm just going to pop the date number in. We're now looking at September. I could tell the system to honor weekends and holidays, and if it should fall on one of those, adjust it to the next business day. I could also add in a grace period if I have to have a proper mail delivery, like a certified registered receipt mail, or
Mm-hmm.
effective service through something like a process server.
Okay. That is extremely handy.
Very. What I like best about this is it also does the same math backwards. So if I throw in a minus sign in front of the number count for the days, it will do the same math in reverse. So I don't have to scroll the calendar or try to come up with a search and make sure I'm searching it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
It's doing all of that for you, and it's taking into consideration how lawyers and legal professionals are doing that kind of a calculation. So
Mm-hmm.
really helpful. Now, knowing that oftentimes these kind of calculations are driven by a process or a procedure, on the bottom left, you'll see a link to save this as a template so you could call up that calculation at any time. You just have to make sure your original date is correct so your calculation is true.
Okay. That is extremely handy. I used to have a wall that had 12 months of calendar. It was a whiteboard, 12 months calendar, and I would just to double check,
Just
go
scroll
and
down. Right.
count. Yeah.
Yeah, in my past life as a paralegal, I had time and date calculator.com on a bookmark on my dashboard so I could always go there because it comes up on the daily. So you want to make sure you have those kind of things handy. And
Mm-hmm.
now you don't have to leverage those kind of outside sources. We've brought it to you.
Right. Right.
In scheduling your event, you have the ability to assign ownership, and this could be done in a couple different ways. So, by default, when you create a calendar appointment, it assumes you are the owner, you are responsible for hosting the event.
Mm-hmm.
You can distribute ownership to someone else. So, for that lawyer paralegal relationship, you can assign ownership to the lawyer that you're supporting, or vice versa. The
Mm-hmm.
attorney needs the paralegal to take the lead here. If you're an attorney and you need coverage from a colleague, that ownership dropdown works the same way. You'll ultimately select who is going to be responsible for appearing or maintaining that appointment. Underneath, you'll have your attendee types being firm or internal or external. What I really like about this is when you switch over to external, it gives you a lookup for those outside parties, your clients, your court staff, your court reporters, or other vendors. You can use this search box using just a type through to start finding a name and make your selection. If I had already selected a matter or lead, we'll use my friend Betty here. When I click into that search box, it gives preference to matter related contacts, so I don't have to go digging for those relationships. They're going to be brought to the forefront for me.
Okay.
In using that external relationship, it also adds a separate reminder section for those outside parties. So, the same way I, as a member of the firm, want to be reminded that this is coming up, and I could do so by text message, email, or browser pop up, I can also do this for that outside person by text or email so long as I have that contact information on file. So really helpful for making sure that that potential new client has a little nudge leading into the appointment, that they don't forget that they booked that consultation, or when you're approaching something like a deposition, you want to nudge the court reporter, make sure that you're
Mm-hmm.
confirmed for that service.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the calendar, in addition to having your own personal calendar, if you head over to the full calendar page, this allows you a really multifaceted way of managing the calendar, not just for yourself, but for the firm. So when you come to the full calendar page, it will by default show you a monthly view of the calendar, and you can once again toggle to other views. But from here, you'll have three additional features. The first one being the ability to print the calendar. It will show whatever version you have on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
You could search the calendar using a keyword or phrase, as well as using advanced terms like an event category or a date range or combination thereof. And if I reopen that collapsible timer pane, it's now added two sections in addition to the timers. So we have one for users and one for categories. And these are live filters, so I can check off a colleague's calendar, whether I'm just for viewing for availability or I need to manage their calendar.
Mm-hmm.
I can toggle it off and those events will disappear and reappear. And in viewing the calendar, it does this two ways. So anyone that is not you will have a color sliver on the left of the appointment, so you could differentiate what's theirs from what's yours. You'll also have initials on the bottom right calling out who is the event owner. So really
That's
helpful,
handy.
especially when you're managing multiple attorneys. At one time in my career, I was working for an insurance defense firm where I was managing 12 different attorneys. So I would have loved to have something like this to be able to kind of have it all in one place and manage it as I needed to.
Well, and then just having the initials there is huge as
Right,
well because yeah, I can relate purple to purple, but
right,
then I've got to go figure out who is which one and
right.
yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And especially when you start getting into the higher numbers, you might have
Mm-hmm.
two purples and three oranges and five reds,
Mm-hmm.
depending on things like that. And with this, you can assign the colors. So if right now I'm posing as Robert DuPont, if I needed to change Kevin to a different color because there were too many purples, I didn't need to distinguish him. I can switch those
Mm-hmm.
colors off quite easily. Same goes for your categories. As I mentioned, those categories are color coded. So when you're creating those categories, you'll be asked to pick a color so that they appear a certain way. And those are the grays and the yellows or greens and reds that you see here on the calendar. And this too is a live filter. So if I take off something like, let's do meetings, you'll see some things disappear. If I take off clients and conferences, some more will come off, and I just have to take them back on for them to reappear. So, really, in the here and the now, making sure that you could quickly and easily find what you need and answer those questions like, what do I have on my calendar today? Or tell me when the next trial is, or things like that. All right. Now, heading down our navigation pane, let's head over to tasks. Tasks are absolutely instrumental in the day to day operations of a law firm, and we have tried to make it that much easier to not just make sure things are getting done, but also make sure that the ease in the communications around the task are that much more efficient. And we're always looking to automate and create around this. So there's always development throughout the program, but especially here. Now, in managing tasks, the system will show you your tasks focusing on today, but you have filters on the top here so you could focus on a type of event like something phone call based.
Mm-hmm.
You could also focus on kind of a duration or a time period. So, what's upcoming, what's overdue. In looking at your tasks, we have two ways to create a task, and the first one is a quick task. This is just the subject line, and because we said it was a quick task, it will assume that the turnaround is very short. It'll make it due today at 5 o'clock.
Okay.
And that is in your time zone. So here, if I said something, especially if it was like a personal to do, pick up dry cleaning, This will add it to my list. It is by me and to me. I have my subject line, and it's due today at 5 o'clock. If this is a can't miss deadline, I can star the task and it will float up to the top of my task list, making it a top priority. And it will stay there until I either deprioritize it or mark it as completed, in which case it'll get filtered away because I've completed the task.
Okay.
I also have the plus sign here and in other locations where I can create a new task with all of the different fields, a lot more detail here. So, really helpful when you're trying to create a true task assignment. There's a project, there is a larger to do here.
Mm-hmm.
So, here it might be something like preparing a motion. You'll have your task subject, which is kind of that banner headline, that parent task. You have a description field, which is formatted text and link friendly, so great for putting in those additional details and putting in those instructions to make sure that you are properly asking for a certain thing to be done.
Mm-hmm.
You can make this a priority task right away. You could categorize it as a phone call and it adds a little receiver icon to let you know it's that type of a task. And right now, because the task is by me and to me, I can mark it as private so only I could see the task and any of its details. As soon as I change the assignor or add additional parties to the assignment, that private option goes away because we have to share this information out.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You could color code your tasks if that's what works for you in terms of management or prioritization. You also have tagging, really helpful for putting in additional keywords or phrases to better understand the topic at hand or the purpose. What is the assignment? What is the task or the type of task? On the right, you have your assignor and assignees, your due date and time. You'll have the opportunity to associate to a matter or lead. Your status, we have a pre-built status dropdown with a couple different statuses between start and finish. You also have the ability to set alerts for when the task is completed or should fall past due. So, trying to be a little bit more efficient than having an attorney chase down a paralegal or vice versa. Hey, what's the status on this? You could follow this along through the various stages.
I want to kind of hang on that for a moment
Yeah.
because that is a thing that people ask me about a lot. Is I want to know when people took care of this thing. I want to know that it
Right.
was completed, and there are very, very few platforms that allow for an alert me when completed
Right.
functionality.
Right, and it contrasts the same for past due.
Mm-hmm.
They'll let you know that there was a deadline, and it's up to you to track it and see that it has come to pass.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to that, you also have those reminders. So, similar to the nudges we just talked about with our calendar events, you can have those nudges here for your tasks. So, I, Robert, as the assignor, can stand up text reminders, email reminders, or browser pop up notifications ahead of the deadline to give people the proper nudge before the deadline comes to pass and passes. With these reminders, you could do as many reminders as you'd like with different formats and different timings. So you could space them out, or if it's somebody that needs to be a little bit more intrusive, you can kind of bombard them doing all three at the same time. But you would know what is going to work best for you and your team.
Mm-hmm.
With the new task, you'll also have a tab here for bringing in a document attachment. So, especially because legal is so document intensive, this was a really big deal for us. So, we brought that attachment functionality over from email. So, you can
Mm-hmm.
now link in a document from a matter. So, here, if we put in our matter, it'll look up to that document list within our matter. We could grab our single item or multiple items, bring them in. And now from here, anyone that's assigned to the task has a shortcut to the individual documents,
Mm-hmm.
as well as actions like previewing within the browser, opening with our Z Drive plugin, or using our browser-based Z editor. If your task is recurring, just like with the calendar, you'll be able to tell the system, hey, this happens more than once, and
Mm-hmm.
here's when I need it to start and end. And last, my personal favorite part of tasks is subtasks and task templates. So, especially when there's a really complex task, like in our case, the ask was to prepare a motion.
Mm-hmm.
There are oftentimes many steps or subtasks that are involved in this one particular assignment. And this can be done as a one-off, here I'll just put in a subtask for print color photos. Or it might be something more structured. It's again, that process or procedure that needs to be considered. You could create task templates where you will tell the system, here are all the things that have to happen relative to this larger task. So here, if I'm doing something like motion, I know I always have to do these 3 things when I'm filing a motion or
Mm-hmm.
preparing a motion. And I want to make sure that these are all equally acknowledged. When I save my task in, the task will include a little icon on the right to parse that out. So I can mark those subtasks off independently to show the party's progress, keep track of where I left off,
Mm-hmm.
or I could use this like an instruction manual. Here are the 3 things I have to do in the order I have to do them before I can say I'm done.
Okay.
So,
So
really
yeah,
helpful in trying to be clear and concise, but also efficiently communicate where everything stands.
and creating your processes, your internal processes of how do we do things, how do we
Right.
make them more efficient.
Right. Making sure there's consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I expand this task row, this is going to give me a description preview. This also has a comment section. So similar to, while this is in no ways an internal messaging mechanism, this will allow you to put a comment on a particular task to correspond internally. So here, this task is between Alan and myself. I can go ahead and comment to Alan. Hi, Alan. Took care of drafting the motion. When I submit this comment, Alan, as a party to the task, will receive a pop up and email letting him know that, hey, this task has a comment on it. It'll also bring him a shortcut to come back to the task to view the details of the comment and respond in kind if need be. Now let's head over to our matters, which are really, kind of home base. This is going to give you a lot of what we already talked about in one central location, which is so important to us because we want to make sure we're giving you everything, being that end-to-end solution, but giving you everything you need as best as possible.
Mm-hmm.
In your matters area, you'll have a header where you'll be able to see at a glance your matters by practice area and your matters by status. In your matter list header, you'll have filters on the left by status. You'll also have a search capability on the right. And while this does default to using your matter number, which may include a name and a number, you also have a filter that will expand out to show extra fields. And these are things like a specific status, a docket number, a type of billing. And this is great, and especially with circumstances where there is a multifaceted search. You need multiple criterias to all play together to get you a specific result.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, because no 2 people work the same, we also have what we call our Matterscape feature. And this is going to allow you to do 2 things. One is create a query for you to always come back to so that you could view a certain set of information based on search criteria you provide. The other is to create matter level custom reporting because this does include any matter level custom fields. So, a great example here, if I needed to pull up a specific view, Robert's estate planning view, because we want to focus on just a certain kind of case. When I create these various views,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell the system what is the name of my view so I know what the reference point is. I'm going to check off all of the different fields of data that I want to be seen. And on the right here, I'll drag and drop them into an order that works best for me. Depending on my query, I'll also have the opportunity to filter within a certain column. So in this case, we want to filter by practice area, just show the estate planning cases and just show them for a specific attorney. So really helpful in making sure you're getting what you need as efficiently as possible.
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't, as I mentioned, include all of your custom fields, so maybe a phase of the case or certain, in this case, a true false for have they been previously married. In using these Matterscapes, you could share them across all users of the firm if they're a little bit more generic or administrative, or if it's particular to you. In this case, this would be particular to me as Robert. I could set this as my default, and this is where I will come as my matter list, and I could always switch off to other views from there. So really helpful. With the list, once you're in that view, let me try a slightly more populated view here. You'll also have the opportunity to take this list and export it as a PDF report or an Excel spreadsheet. So for when those questions come up, hey, what's the status of this or that, or you
Mm-hmm.
have to communicate internally, you can very easily produce that information and share it along. Let me head into my matter here. There we go. So here, if I head into one of my matters, this is going to, again, be that central home for all the different information. So while you'll have different places for a lot of the same information, it's broader, it's covering multiple clients and matters. This is going to be filtered by this client and matter. On the top left, you have an address line where you could go from matter to matter. So really handy, especially when you're in the middle of something. You could also jump back to your matter list at any time. On the right, depending on your role-based permissions, you'll have the opportunity to view what we call matter stats. This is going to be a financial summary of the matter, so at a glance, you know how many hours were worked on the matter, how much was invoiced since inception of the case, the total amount in your WIP or work in progress for both fees and expenses, as well as your AR and retainer balances. Your matter fields are all the basic data points. Who's the client? Who's the attorney? What type of case is this? What is my docket number? And on the right, you'll have all your custom fields where you'll have the ability to fill in a home for additional information that is equally as important as your matter fields, but doesn't have another home within the matter.
And these custom fields are searchable. We can get them in the reports. We can, these are global, not global, but they're custom fields that can be accessed from documents that are being created, from emails that are, okay.
Yep, so they do serve a wider purpose. Now they are organized by practice area, so you can have one practice area when you get into kind of niche practice areas. Things like family law, where you could be niche in divorce and not child custody, or vice versa. You can be really succinct in what the custom fields are for that practice area and not cloud it or not be overwhelmed because you have all of the custom fields for all of the practice areas, which is really nice. And it's going to work and grow with you. There's not a cap to this necessarily. We do recommend about 20 to 25 per practice area just because of the screen showcase. However, you're not limited. So if you needed more than that, you're welcome to it. The important thing for us was making sure that you had a home for important data right at the top where it might not otherwise have a home.
Okay.
Down at the bottom of that, you'll see various tabs representing some of the different record types and locations. Now here you'll have your contacts list, and this is where you'll find your matter-related contacts, always starting with your client being that first contact because they are most important in this scenario. You also have firm collaborators, so for the slightly larger firm, you could link in a legal assistant, a paralegal, a billing clerk that might be aiding the attorney in navigating the matter. You'll have tabs for events and tasks. These are all just filtered views of your calendar and task list relative to this matter. And from here, you can open any of those records. You could update them. You could also create them from here. Your notes tab, the way I like to explain notes is anything you would write on a yellow legal pad, you can place here. And one of the things I really love about this is it really embraces technology in a couple different ways. So not only are you putting it right into the matter, making sure that everyone has the benefit of the work that you're doing in collecting this information, it also leverages things like dictation for you to properly get that information in. So depending on your device, it's going to be different for Mac versus PC from device to device. On my computer, it's the function key. And if I hit that twice, it activates my microphone. It might not happen because of the recording here, so my apologies. But I'll hit the shortcut key, or hotkey as it's sometimes called, and it will then load up my microphone and translate my speech to text, just like you would do if you were talking on a cell phone.
Okay.
And speaking of cell phones, the mobile application does include notes, and you can use that same functionality through the mobile application. So whether you're using your laptop or the phone, it's all tying back into the matter, and you have the benefit of other people's work at your fingertips.
Okay. And so I could easily dictate my notes while I'm, sitting somewhere or driving down the road or something like that. Well, I guess probably not driving down the road.
Yeah, safety first.
Still, if I'm being driven down the road, let's
right. Right. You're walking around the courthouse on your lunch break.
Right.
Yeah, those kind of things. On the left, you do have folder structure navigation, and depending on your needs based on the practice area, we can even preset those folder structures for you in your administrative settings.
Okay.
Being that these are all electronic notes, each of your notes will offer you a printer icon so you could have a PDF report of that information for your physical files. But in the effort to be paperless and environmentally conscious, hopefully you won't need that too much, but this will offer it to you nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
With your notes, you have a lot of the same power as you do in something like a Word document. This is going to offer you copy and paste, formatted text, bulleted lists, numbered lists, quotations, indentations, pictures, tables, and links. So a lot of great power here. I like using it for things like legal research. It allows you to copy and paste or pour in information from different sources. You can manipulate it, organize it, rework it however you need to, but you're doing it all in one set place and still meeting that need for having a home for that data.
Okay.
Your communications tab is going to give you a home for those emails and phone call notes that you would have created in your inbox or through your quick add. And here it's almost like having a second inbox. If I was to take this email message and maybe I have deleted it out of my inbox, but because I did associate it to the matter, it's taking a copy of that email and placing it on the matter as a separate record. So I could come here, I could still retrieve that message, and I can interact with it largely the same. So here I can come in and hit reply all and continue that thread or forward that thread on if need be. It would include any document attachments, any pictures, anything like that. So I still get a lot of that inbox functionality without having to live solely out of my inbox.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
This is also great in situations where you have a support staff coming in on your behalf to continue work forward. You're stuck at court, they need to come in, pick up your email thread to let the client know that a reschedule is needed or something has changed. It's anyone that has access to the matter has access to this correspondence once it's associated, so everyone can tag in.
Okay.
Your text messages tab, this is leveraging our brand new client texting feature. And from here, you can see any conversations relative to this matter. You could also initiate conversations outbound. Now, this is something you would have to do. You'd have to initiate a conversation in order to open up that conversation and have it be bidirectional from then on. So, here, if I was to go into the to field, it brings me my matter related contacts first. I could come in, start a conversation. Should just take a moment, but what will happen is within a couple seconds, the reply will have come in. You will see the notification here on the message itself. You'll also have the texting dashboard on
Mm-hmm.
the top right where you'll be able to maintain that same conversation. The only difference between the text message tab on your matter and the texting dashboard is the one on the matter is matter specific as opposed to it being global to all conversations.
Okay. So when that comes into the cell phone, what's the phone number that it's coming from? How did we as a firm get that phone number
Sure.
for texting?
So in your firm settings, you'll be offered the opportunity to place your area code,
Mm-hmm.
and we will use a third-party service that will then assign you a virtual number. If you were to just give out that number, it would not do you any good. You do have to initiate those conversations.
Okay.
And then once you do, it's bidirectional from there on. But you'll have this virtual phone number that they'll be able to see come up on their cell phone, just like a regular text message conversation. You may want to introduce yourself. Hi, it's the firm, or I'm writing on behalf of the firm. But with that, because it is a firm based phone number, it's not individual to you as a user, everyone has the benefit of your conversation. So here I wrote out to a particular person, they wrote back. Now, let's say I'm out of the office tomorrow because I fall ill or have a PTO. Somebody could still see that that conversation was responded to and pick up where I left off and continue the conversation forward. So really helpful in making sure that everyone has visibility and no one is not sitting in one person's inbox.
Okay. Is does the phone number change per matter? Does it change
No,
per time? Okay, so
it's specific to the firm. It doesn't change per matter or per person. It is using a secure virtual number so that once it comes back into the database, it'll know where that conversation originated from because you will say what
mhm.
matter it's pertaining to, and it will tie back accordingly. But really great way to safely and securely communicate with namely your clients, but could be other individuals as well. But also practice law at the speed of law. So, things are happening every minute of every day and you're on the go. So this is getting you a little bit closer to that same speed without you having to give out your personal cell phone.
Mhm. Okay.
On your matter, you have your time and expense tab, and this is going to let you recap all of your various time entries, flat fee services, your everyday expenses, and your interest charges if they're a little bit past due. You'll have separate tabs for invoicing and other financial information, and those are permissions. You have your documents tab, and this is the document management I alluded to earlier. So this is going to be stored within our cloud, and this is going to allow you to put any document that is relative to this matter here. You could also save document attachments from an email into the respective matter, so helpful in that. You can do a simple drag and drop upload or a specific browse to get the documents in. Once they're here, everyone that has access to the matter has benefit of that document and they can interact with it a number of different ways. In addition, we also have our own document automation services where you can use document templates with a combination of merge fields,
Mhm.
things like client name, client address, or your custom fields to marry all that information together to assemble documents really quickly, especially things like the motion that we prepared earlier. So, really helpful in giving you just within a couple of clicks, you have a brand new document at the ready.
Okay.
With your documents, you'll have options with our plugins like our Z Drive plugin. This is going to let you take something out of the cloud temporarily, bring it to an application like Word or Adobe, use all of the power of those applications in order to make your edits or move information around, formatting, things like that, and then send it back to our cloud when you're done.
Okay, so it automatically saves to the cloud, much like if I were manipulating a document that I had shared and that I had saved in SharePoint, and I was
Right.
manipulating it locally, but it was saving to the cloud and accessible by everybody else after I kind of checked it back in.
Right, right. So, really helpful in making sure that as quickly as possible your work is returned back to the cloud and everyone has the benefit of those edits or other changes.
Okay.
You also have the Z Editor, which is a browser based editing tool, very comparable to a Word Online or a Google Docs type tool.
Hmm.
This is going to let you stay in our cloud. It's going to open the document in a separate tab. Bear with me, I'm just going to switch tabs here.
Hmm.
Here we go. So it will open the document in a separate tab of the same browser, and it's going to allow you to do things like rename your document, edit the text, track your time. It will even version your document all at the same time. So a lot of power baked in. It does have certain limitations. So if you're looking for more advanced tools like a document comparison and
Hmm.
advanced redlining, you're better served using the Z Drive function where you have some of the more advanced tools within Microsoft to leverage. But a lot of the basic edits, you're changing documents back and forth, you're spell checking, you're proofreading, all of that can be done here with the Z editing tool, and you can do that all on the go. You don't have to check anything out or take it out of the cloud. It's all cloud based.
Okay. Okay.
Within your more advanced actions on your document list, particularly for a Word document, you'll have the ability to convert a Word document to a PDF in one click. You don't need Word, you don't need Adobe or a PDF tool. We have a built in converter, so just have to confirm the name of the future PDF. And once you say convert, it will give you that PDF output. In that list, you'll also have options for emailing or sharing via our client portal. Our client portal is really great, especially if you are communicating more sensitive information. We are very concerned and always staying up to date with making sure we're meeting our clients' security needs and data security protocols. So it's something that is very top of mind for us. And with the client portal, it is bank level secure. So if you needed to communicate, and HIPAA compliant. So if you need to communicate medical records or financial records, you can rest assured that the data will be communicated to only those you share with, and
Mm-hmm.
it's being done in the most secure manner. The person on the receiving end does have to go through a multi-factor authentication in order to prove that they are them,
Mm-hmm.
and before they could actually achieve access to the document.
Okay, so if you're reminding a client to show up to court on Tuesday at 5 p.m., send them a text. If you're sending them something that says, "Please confirm that these are your medical records," put that in the portal, because
Right.
the text messaging is unless you've set it up very very specifically, never going to be as secure as a client portal like this.
Right. And similar with email, email is great.
Mm-hmm.
It's very efficient. It serves a certain purpose. But every day you turn on the news, you're hearing about different hacking or attempted hackings. So this is making sure that this is giving you that next level way to make sure that you still have a means of communication. You have a way to transfer information
Mm-hmm.
securely and in real time with it, in giving you that peace of mind without having to use something like an email or text message, which while it will happen quickly, then you might be compromising security.
Is this portal something that my client can get to on their mobile phone, computer? It kind of anything that they're connected to
All
the
the
internet
above.
with. Okay.
All the above. So it does rely on a website. So once the person authenticates
Mm-hmm.
themselves, they'll use their email that they have on file with the firm and a password that they would have chosen to
Mm-hmm.
continue access. And from there, they'll have access to documents that had been shared by the firm, as well as their billing invoices if the firm chooses to communicate invoicing that way.
Okay, okay, but they don't have to download an app or something like that either. It's
No.
just going right through the web based. Okay.
Right. Right. Uploading a new version. So, upload a new version serves a couple different purposes. So, especially with in terms of editing or authoring, versioning oftentimes happens because I, as the author, am adding a change to that document. So, I did a spell check and I changed a couple of words, or I threw in some spaces. This also happens in terms of when you think of larger practice needs where there are multiple authors. You have a contract or an agreement. I am author one, you are author two, somebody else
Mm-hmm.
is author three, and we're now commingling all of these versions. The naming often gets a little bit wonky because I throw in V1, you put in V3, and we just kind of cycle around with names and numbers and versions, and it gets a little bit crazy at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to allow you to manually say, I have this document from this person and I need to park it here as the next version or the continuation of this document. If the name of the document changes, if the author changes, dates and times, all of that will be taken into consideration with the versioning. So here, if we look at the version of this document, we're at version 21. We see with certainty who is the author, when was it last updated. I could also see that in the history of the document, the name of the document has evolved over time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's maintaining all of that. I don't have to guess which version, what happened, who did what, and this is taken into account when we're searching documents because I could say, give me only a specific version of this document where a search term may appear.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I could search for final version of the document, or I could say
Right.
I want original version of a document where this appears. Okay.
Right. And similarly, if I was to do a search, and I'll do one here within the matter, if I was to do a search for a term like hearing, and it only appeared in version one of the document, it's going to
Mm-hmm.
tell me it only appeared in version one of the document and let me access that specific version. So I don't have to go on this needle in a haystack kind of hunt as to, I know it's here, but it may not be there. And my starting point is the term hearing. I'm not sure where it's going to land me.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to get you there anyway. Another feature we have within our matters are our intake forms, and these can be used one of two ways. This can be used internally because I, as a person of the firm, need to pull information I'm collecting through things like a conversation with a client, a consultation, an internal meeting. We're pulling all this information in one place. And you, as the firm, are going to stand up this intake form based on the needs of that data. So you'll say, I need a name field, I'll need an address field, I'll need a paragraph field because maybe I have to ask a open-ended question for things like how did the car accident happen?
Mm-hmm.
So really helpful in making sure you have one home for everything you need. Part of the power of the intake forms is once those answers are completed, you then have merge fields that you can leverage in your document automation to quickly spin up a letter to the client, a complaint, a motion, whatever that next document might be.
Mm-hmm. So these fields, once somebody populated them, would populate fields in the matter, and then I'd be able to merge those populated fields into a document in order to send them a welcome letter or something like that.
Right. To be clear, they're not the same as the custom fields you see up on the top right here, so there isn't necessarily field mapping, but
Okay.
it is going to be, it will be treated much the same, it will act much the same, and that it's giving you a home for that information. You just have to look in a slightly different part of the matter.
Okay. So this kind of these intake forms and the information in them kind of lives in a separate area within the intake
Correct.
forms. Okay.
Right. And the intake forms, much like with the documents, they can be used at the matter level because this person's already a client. You
Mm-hmm.
could also use them within your leads because you're trying to acquire the information ahead of them becoming a formal client.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So while it's called an intake form, you're not limited to the intake process. In using your intake forms, you also have what we call a shared form, and this is where you've told the system, I want somebody else to give me the answer to the question. It will generate a secure hyperlink or URL for you to then communicate out to another person or group of people. So great for husband and wife, parent and children, group of people who need to then return information. When they click on that link, they're going to go to a website, and I'll switch pages here in a second. Here we go.
Mm-hmm.
So they will go to a separate page showcased here, and they're going to see the same fields that you saw on the intake form tab. They see it as a nice, clean website with your firm logo, so they know what's particular to you as the firm,
Mm-hmm.
and they will answer the questions much like a survey or a form. And when they hit save, you will receive the updates to those answers. So those questions will now have the field will be populated with the information that respondent had provided. Until you hit submit, you and that person that is answering the form can collaborate on the response. So if they call and they say, hey, I'm not sure how to answer this question, can you help me out here? You can walk them through the response that is expected. If they give you the information over the phone, you could also say, hey, you know what, don't worry about that. I'll help you fill in the blank here.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Once the submit occurs, it locks the form for both you and the respondent. So making sure that it's not just open and available to anybody. You've told in your submission, you're basically telling the system, hey, this is the information I have. I want to give this to the firm and be done with it. And it will then expire the secure URL. So if anybody was to then attempt to use that link, it will tell them there's nothing you could do here. You don't have access to the fields, you don't have access to any of the data.
Okay. Okay. So we wouldn't accidentally rewrite the information that we got on May the 5th on May the 7th. Okay.
Right, and really helpful, especially in the what I've seen in my career is firms will use something like a Word document or a PDF form where they're basically doing a save as, and then you
Mm-hmm.
have the chance of rewriting somebody else's work, and you don't even realize you're doing it in the moment because you had your own need at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And this is making sure you have a way to safely and securely segregate the information, make sure if there are three people answering, you have three separate forms and they're not commingling, but also making sure that at the end of the day, it's all coming back to that one matter where it does belong and where you need that visibility.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one I wanted to talk about was the document dashboard. So for the document dashboard, it does have its own location here in the navigation pane. And similar to the documents we have on our matter, this is going to allow you to search documents within the database. This will let you also shortcut to recent items. So what I really love about the document dashboard is that it is not particular to you as a user. You know what you've done in say the recent hours or recent days, but this is allowing for the firm to kind of have some cross visibility or cross functionality. So, starting with a search, if I needed to do a search, I can just place a generic keyword or phrase, and I could use a term like hearing, which could be audio hearing or it could be a court hearing. It will display all of your results with a matching snippet. So that's where if your documents are OCR'd or indexed, you have
Mm-hmm.
that extra power
Okay.
of your search. And you also have the ability to do things like change your criteria along the way, because maybe I realize I need court hearing more specifically, and that will narrow my search. You can also do what we call a fuzzy search if you need like terms. Maybe you need a plural of a term, or you
Mm-hmm.
need, kind of different tenses, those kind of things. You could get really granular with things like client and matter selections, as well as a type of document you want, the Word version or the PDF version, specific authors or practice areas. So, a lot of power in our searching.
Okay.
And this, unlike the global search using the magnifying glass, this is only searching documents, but a little bit broader than the documents tab on the matter. It's searching more than just the single matter. So, a happy medium between the two.
Okay.
One of the other things I really like about the documents dashboard is that it's showing you not just your work, but your teammates' work as well. So, if the attorney has asked me to prepare a letter, I can draft that letter. And even if I forget to communicate, hey, I did that thing, whether it's checking the task is done or verbalizing that this action has occurred, they can look at the recent documents dashboard and see that I have actually started drafting that document. I have authored this document, and they can jump in using the more actions menu to take certain actions. They could also click on the document name with actions like previewing within the browser,
Mm-hmm.
downloading it outside of the CARET cloud, or using our Z Drive plugin to now open it with an application like Word if they had to jump in and do formatting changes or more advanced changes.
Okay.
This dashboard also includes visibility to the client portal. So if you have access to that particular matter, you would be one of the notified parties, especially if you're the responsible attorney. And this is going to give you some visibility. So because I have access to the City of Akron matter, I could see that Brent recently received a form to that matter from the client portal. So really helpful in kind of shortcutting some of the communications that do sometimes become time intensive because it's a literal game of telephone. I have to tell somebody that something happened at the behest of somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
and this is taking out all that middleman. It's showing everybody, hey, this did occur. Come in when you're ready.
Well, Amy, that is a lot of stuff in CARET, which is to be expected. This is an all-in-one law practice management platform. But we went through email, we went through calendar, document creation, finding documents, searching email, all of these things. So I really appreciate you taking us through those. I know that I learned a lot about the CARET legal system, and I hope that people watching this learned a lot as well. But if they want to know more, they can get a demo, they can get a free trial, and I think you said there were a lot of help articles there as well.
Yep,
Uh,
so using the question mark icon on the top right, it'll take you to our support site where you can view knowledge base articles with written instructions. We have our own YouTube channel with tons of content there, as well as shortcuts for our biweekly webinars and training as well.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, again, Amy, I appreciate you being with me and walking me through all this stuff. Thank you again.
Thank
All
you
right,
so much, Zach.
all right. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Take care.